Hi there guys, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Business English. Now today I've got just a quick episode again for you on how to say no politely. This is episode 73 of The Art of Business English. Now as you may know, sometimes if you're like me, it can be quite difficult to say no to people. I generally like to help people. I generally like saying yes, and that can sometimes be a problem. I mean, I generally try and be friendly. I love social events. I love going out with friends. As you know, I like to help my colleagues. I like to help my employees and help my friends. So sometimes being a yes person all the time, it can put a bit of a strain on your actual time, or the time that you have available to do your things. So basically what I wanted to look at today was some language or some expressions that we can use if we want to say no to people politely, because I mean sometimes saying no can be quite difficult. Your kids are always asking you for things, and maybe it's easy to say no to them or not. But when it's your friends, or when it's your colleagues, or when it's your partner, then sometimes, you can feel bad because you're saying no. And sometimes, it's not that you want to say no, but you just don't have the time. So if you're not really aware of your time, or how much time you've got available, then you can soon run into a bit of trouble with overcommitments, okay? And as we know, overcommitments can lead to a bit of stress and burnout. Especially if you're already committed to a lot of things and you decide to accept another project or another event or another speech or another meeting or whatever. So basically what we need to be aware of is our time and how we can manage that, and how we can say no to people without making them feel bad, without feeling bad ourselves, and being polite about it. Okay, so let's have a look at this episode. I've got a few notes here. So basically, what we're going to start with is some tips. So I'm going to look at tips on how you can be aware of your time. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do before we say no to people is we actually need to have our calendar or our schedule clear. We need to be quite organized. Why, you may be asking, do we need to have our calendar organized? Well, if you have your calendar well organized, then you can actually block off things. You can block off time, and you can really guard that time. And that leads to you really having an excuse for saying no, because it's often easier to say no to someone if you already have an excuse, or if you have a reason for not being able to do what it is that they're asking you. So the first step is having your calendar quite clear. And what I mean by that is not just your work calendar. Your calendar really should integrate both work commitments, your personal commitments, and when I say personal, I mean things that you do alone or for yourself, then your family commitments, and then from there, what you'll actually have is more of an idea about how much free time you've got. Okay, so if you're organized from the beginning, then you can actually see or have a clear mental model of how much free time you've got. Okay, so what you can actually do then to do this is you can actually start to block off in your calendar like the time slots that you do things that are important for you. For example, if you need to go to the gym, which I encourage you to do because it's part of leading a healthy lifestyle, then you should put into the gym or into your calendar the day that you actually go to the gym, or the days that you go to the gym, and block that off. I mean, you don't necessarily, if you're sharing a calendar with your colleagues at work, then you can make those events private if you're a bit embarrassed about people seeing that you go to the gym or art class or whatever it is. Or if it's a personal thing, like, you got a doctor's appointment. I mean, you can make those events private. Or you can just give them a different name. Okay, you can just call it meeting with John or something like that. But if we start to block these times off, then they become quite they become quite a part of our routine. They're blocked off mentally and visually, so you can't you can see that time is taken, and then the event then is pretty much safe. People can't really steal it from you, or at least you're aware that you've got something on at that time, okay? And it's taking up X number of hours in your week. What else can we do? So, the next thing that we can do is, that's important. You need to be a bit forward thinking as well. So this is related to your schedule as well. For example, if you know that at the end of every quarter you have to do a lot of work to, file or fill out your expenses reports, or you're trying to close a quarter, you've got extra reporting to do. For example, in my case, because I teach a lot of students, I like to give them quarterly evaluations, some feedback, maybe have some meetings with students just to see how they're, to give them my thoughts and their progress. So, these types of activities are going to take extra time in your day or your week. So if you do have a bit of, forward thinking and planning as a part of your sort of work style, which I encourage, then what you can do is predict or foresee that these activities are going to take up more of your time, and therefore this time really should be allocated for, okay? And if you know that in the next 2 weeks you're going to be very busy, then that will also give you the perspective to say no, or it will make you understand that you can't accept more things and you can't say yes to more things because that work is coming. The problem is that some people are quite disorganized and they don't have this forward thinking or forward planning, and they say yes to things in advance, and then they realize, oops, wait a minute, I've overcommitted myself because I forgot that I'm going to be quite busy at that period of time in the year. So again, it's about thinking and planning ahead in many ways, and putting these or allocating this time into your schedule. Okay, so if you are forward thinking and planning, then you can foresee busy times of the year, and then you'll know that you can't commit to things. So this again is tied back into one of the main things that we need to do, and that is to provide genuine excuses as to why we can't do things. Some people feel bad, but I mean, if you genuinely know that you can't accept more work or commit to more projects or go to these events, then and you won't feel so bad because you genuinely can't. The problem is it's worse if you say to someone, yes, I'll do that, and then you realize that you've overcommitted yourself and then you back out. I mean, if you back out of something, it's actually worse than saying no in the first place. So a lot of people can run into trouble by accepting things and then making the situation worse by cancelling on that person. That person was expecting you to do what you said. And if you're like me, I'm a great believer in keeping your word. I'm a great believer in doing and committing to the things that you say, because that's a part of being a good person, having integrity, and it's about building trust and with people. So you really need to do what you commit to. So it's better, in my opinion, and part of my value system is if you can't commit to something, then it's best to say no, which can be very hard because I find it difficult to say no to people. Having a clear idea of your schedule and having a clear idea of where you're going for that week, month, or year will give you a better perspective about how much free time you have. Okay. Now, another thing, and this is also related to knowing about when you're going to have these busy periods, there is also the opposite or the flip side to this. You need to also take into consideration that sometimes things are going to pop up that were unexpected or not planned, and maybe they're urgent and maybe they're important. So if they are urgent and important, then, you have to deal with them at that time. So we should always build a bit of a buffer into our schedule so that we have a little bit of cushioning, a little bit of room in case these, fires pop up and we need to put them out. Okay, so don't fill up your calendar and have everything timed perfectly, because I often do that. My wife says to me, how is it possible that you can get so many things done? Because I literally time things. I'm like, okay, I'll finish this at this time, and then it'll take me this much time to go from here to there, and then from here to there I'll be able to start this, and I link them all together, which is incredibly effective. However, on the negative side of this, what actually happens is if some piece of the puzzle doesn't fit or breaks, or if you expected to start at that time, but then suddenly you got held up by something, there was a traffic jam, or I don't know, you got someone you bumped into someone and they started talking to you, and they took up 15 minutes of your time where you were between tasks or going from one place to the other, then suddenly your perfectly planned sequence of events can be knocked off path. So I understand that because I do it myself, that it's great to have everything planned to the minute. However, you really need to build flexibility into your calendar and into your agenda or into your schedule, because things don't always go according to plan and some things will pop up. So you need a bit of room to move about. Okay. And another thing that's important to remember is, we often think that most things are important, and we're like, oh my God, I've got to finish that. Oh my God, I've got to finish that. But really, these are all constructs of our mind, and we often put ourselves under a lot of pressure unnecessarily because we attach lots of importance to many things. So you need to be aware that maybe if you can't complete all your tasks, it doesn't matter, because they're not as important as you think, and you can just rearrange them. Okay, so having a bit of flexibility in your schedule will allow for that rearrangement. Okay, so that's how we should manage our schedule in order to really understand how much free time we do have. And once we understand how much free time we have, then we can decide whether or not we accept or not, people asking us of things of our time. Okay, so before I wrap things up, I really want to touch on one very important part as well. Now, I've been reading a great book, and I'm sure many of my listeners have read this book. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you haven't read it, then I encourage you to read it. It's a classic. It's been around for quite a few years now, but it's really a sound book. And I really like the pretext of it. I like how, the main argument at the beginning is you need to take responsibility for your own life and stop, looking for external factors to blame or react to. You need to be proactive and take control of, your own time and your values and etc. So it's quite an interesting book. But he does look, the author, and I can't remember his name offhand, which is embarrassing, but it's okay. The book's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in the book, he brings up a quite interesting concept called four quadrants of time management. And these quadrants, as you can imagine, it's a square and it's divided into 4 parts. And the 4 parts have 4 main categories, or they're governed by 4 main categories. And these are urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Okay, so, we can divide, or we can classify our tasks into urgent and important, or urgent and not important. And we can also use not urgent but important, and not important and not urgent. So these are basically the way that these 4 quadrants are categorized and classified. And basically, quadrant 1 is a crisis, it's emergencies. So in quadrant 1, this is when you are reacting. Quadrant 1 is when these things that pop up into your life that maybe you need to react to because they're urgent, they need fixing, or they're a crisis or an emergency, and they are important. So here, you're not really governed by your own decisions here. You're just reacting. Okay, so this is not a great place to be, but it happens. So you need to have time in your schedule for that. So that's why you need to be able to say no and not overcommit. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but important. And this is the prevention, planning, self-improvement quadrant. Now, we should be spending most of our time in quadrant 2. Now, quadrant 3 is not important, but urgent. And unfortunately, most people spend a lot of time here. This is basically equating to interruptions. We think that things are important, or we think that they're urgent, and we spend time here. We mistake many activities for this. So we are reacting a lot to things like phone calls, requests for meetings, things that pop up, colleagues requesting things of us, which maybe they think is important, but they're not really important, or they're not important to us, but we feel, and they transmit urgency to us, so we classify them as urgent. And quadrant 3 is not a great place to be, but most people spend a lot of time in quadrant 3. And then there's quadrant 4, which is not a great place to be either, because that's not important and not urgent. Now, the procrastinators of the world, they spend a lot of time here. It's easy to go to quadrant 4 because quadrant 4 is easy. Quadrant 4 is when you just like surf aimlessly surfing the internet, looking for something, and look, that's important, I'm going to read that. Doing research, which isn't really actually research. It's just you reading, a Wikipedia page on some event that sounds interesting. So you read about it, and it takes up half an hour of your time, but you've read the whole entry in Wikipedia of this, and now you suddenly feel like you're a more intelligent person. But really, that information will probably be forgotten in no time. It hasn't really contributed to you being productive or planning or making sure that no crises happen in the future. Also in quadrant 4 is when you're watching TV, Netflix, binging, social media, all of these things that don't really or achieve much in terms of productivity or self-improvement, but it's a nice place to be. So again, these quadrants are you get to choose how you divide up your tasks, because maybe quadrant 4 for you is important because that's how you relax. So you need to watch Netflix for an hour a day because that's how you disconnect. So it's up to you really. But we should be trying to spend as much time as possible in quadrant 2, which is preventing problems, planning, learning, reading books, self-improvement, going to the gym, things like that, okay? So coming back, refocusing on this episode about saying no, we need to be disciplined in quadrant 4 because we need to say no to ourselves. But quadrant 3 is where we're going to learn the language for today, because quadrant 3 is often where we have our time taken from us by things which we think are important or urgent, when in fact they're not important and not really that urgent. Okay, so let's have a look then. And I love this word, quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. Well, quadrant 4 can be procrastinating. I like that one. So it comes from the word procrastinating, but procrastinating means, you're saying that you're working, but actually you're just doing nothing. You're doing like meaningless work. Okay, right. So let's move on to the last part of this episode, where I'm going to give you the breakdown of these expressions. Okay, so I've got some expressions here. I've got about 15. So the easiest way to say no to someone is say, I'm sorry, I can't. Okay, so that's pretty bland, not really very elegant. You can say no, sorry, but we would like to do it in a polite way to avoid making the person feel bad and making ourselves feel bad. So I've got a list here. I'm going to read them off to you, and then we'll do a little breakdown. So, thank you very much for asking me, but I believe I have another engagement or another meeting or another dinner. Next one. I really appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm fully booked in for the next month. Okay, next one. Thanks for the invitation, but unfortunately, I'm snowed under with work at the moment. Okay, so snowed under is an expression meaning you're completely full of work. That sounds awesome. I wish I could make it. But I have promised my wife or my husband or my partner I will be home that weekend. Thanks for thinking of me, but I have a lot on my plate at the moment. So a lot on my plate is another expression meaning you're very busy. Next one. I'm really sorry, or I'm sorry to say, but I'm going to have to pass up on this offer. Okay, pass up is a phrasal verb meaning to not accept. Oh, I'm really sorry, but I can't because. So if you use because as you may know that in some previous episodes, I've mentioned the power of because. Basically, you can really say anything. They did a study, I think it was back in the 1970s. If you're at the photocopying machine, if you say, can I jump in front of you? And the person would say no. But if you say, can I jump in front of you because I need to make some photocopies? Just saying because, the person would say, oh, okay. So even though they're waiting in line at the photocopy machine to make photocopies, if you say, can I jump in front of you because I need to make some photocopies, they would accept that 90% of the time, even though the excuse is not very, it's not very strong, is it? It's like, wow, I need to make some photo. The other person could say, I need to make some photocopies too, so why should I let you jump in? So any time you say because and give a little reason, it's quite powerful. Most people will accept it, okay? Now, that sounds lovely. Let me discuss it with my partner and I will get back to you. Okay, so that's not really saying no, that's just, deflecting for more time, but, you're giving it some thought, and sometimes that can, lead to softening the no when it comes. Number 9, that idea sounds fantastic. It's just that I think I have something on that weekend. Okay. Number 10, regretfully, I will be away on business that week. Can we schedule another time? So you're offering here to schedule for another day. So you're saying no, but it's mainly postponing. What a lovely offer. Can you call me in about 3 weeks? I will have more time then. Again, you're postponing here. I would love to help you, but I'm so busy that I think I won't be able to give you 100% of my best. Okay, so here, you're telling the person that you would love to help them. However, because you're so busy, the effort or the quality of your work will not be great. Okay. 13, I would love to come to your party, but I've already made plans. So you would like to go, but you already have something on. Okay. Remember, but always negates what comes before it, so the person understands. Number 14, I'm afraid I won't be able to help you that weekend. Can we look for another time? Again, here you're postponing and you're using the expression I'm afraid. I'm sorry I can't help you with the project, but I could ask Chris if he has some free time. So here you're actually involving someone else, which is also a good way because you're showing that you are trying to help them even though you can't. Okay, so basically the breakdown here is you've got a couple of techniques to soften the negativity. In most of the examples, you thank the person, or in many of these examples, I'm thanking the person. I'm like, oh, thank you for your invitation. That's very nice of you. When you thank someone, it really means that you appreciate the offer. Okay, so it's nice to thank people even if you can't go. Another one is that you are really approving of the idea, like, oh, that sounds wonderful, that sounds awesome, that sounds amazing. So it means that by saying this, it means that you approve of what it is. You would like to do it, but it's not possible due to the circumstances. And finally, we can use expressions like I'm sorry, I'm afraid, regretfully, and this is to show that you have regret for the situation. You would like to do it, but unfortunately, the circumstances do not permit. Okay, so that is really just a breakdown of how we can understand our time and the time we have free, and how we can try and control that time. How we can be aware of how people try and steal our time, because as you know, most time is wasted by things that seem urgent but are not, or just wasting time on social media, which is like things are not urgent or important. However, they are comfortable and nice. Okay. And then also people taking our time from us because they think that their things are important and urgent, and we feeling bad saying no. Okay, so you've got the expressions for saying no. You've got the tips on how to look and manage your time and see how much free time you actually do have in your schedule so that you're ready to say no to someone because you know that you don't have enough time. And then you've got 15 expressions or 15 ways that you can say no to people politely. Okay, so that's it for me, people. I'm gonna run now. Next week I'm going to London because it's Easter. Woohoo! So I'll be there for a week. I may do an episode from London or I may not. I'm still deciding. But I've just launched the new website, so check it out. It's still it's coming together. You know how these things go. Technology is never as smooth as it seems. And I've got my excellence in email writing course there ready to go, but I just need to iron out all of the technical stuff to make sure that the process is smooth and everything's running perfectly. So I will probably have that ready for you guys after Easter at this stage, just to have a bit of buffer. Remember, you need a bit of buffer in your schedule in case things don't work properly. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And I'm looking forward to sending out some stuff on the emailing course, and I hope to get some feedback on the site. Basically, we've moved over to Thrive Themes because I'm a fan of their plugin and you know the website builder. It's super easy to use, and you can make some beautiful web pages with it. And we've incorporated with Thrive Apprentice, which is a great. Pretty easy to use learning system. So yeah, things are happening and I hope you guys like it. Give us your feedback, send me your questions, and I hope you have a great Easter. Have a nice break, and I'll see you all either next week from London or somewhere in between. Take care. Bye for now.